This is the Bluecloud Podcast, empowering the entrepreneurial lifestyle with insights on the leading trends in the mobile and digital landscape, turning ideas to empires.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bluecloud Podcast. This is Carter Thomas of Bluecloud Solutions. Got a special treat for you today. I've got a great interview with my buddy Paxton Hare, who is a fellow Bluecloud community member. And I've been talking to a lot of these recent success stories about the emoji stuff. We've got a new emoji course coming out. If you haven't heard about it yet, you should definitely go to the website, bluecloudsolutions.com/emoji course. Go check that out. You can get a part of this new launch. But what's great about a guy like Paxton is that he's been a developer for a lot of years now. And he's even tried building a few apps here and there and getting a few apps in the store, some of which have been less successful than others, I will say. But what's great is that he recently took some of the Bluecloud trainings and applied that and worked really, really hard and eventually got an app into the store that he quickly moved up to number one in the entire entertainment category. Now, there's a lot to this story, a lot of really incredible moves that he made with market research, with building a great product, with understanding how Facebook ads work, and I'll let Paxton do that explanation. But if you are a developer out there, and if you were ever released an app that didn't go the way you wanted it to, and if you've ever wondered if, man, should I keep going or should I stop now, this is a great conversation for you to listen to. I'm really excited about that. Paxton is a terrific guy. He's really, really talented, very humble, and he's been helping people out in our community, in our Facebook group, which has been unbelievable to see him do that. And so my hat is off to him for all that help. And so I'm going to let Paxton take it from here. He's a great guy, and I'm really fortunate that we can share this conversation with you guys. So, ladies and gentlemen, Paxton Hare.
Learn, implement, succeed. The Bluecloud Podcast with Carter Thomas.
Paxton, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Carter.
This is great. And where are you calling in from? Are you in California? Is that right?
I'm in Florida.
Florida? Because you were visiting California, right?
I was visiting California 2 weeks ago, yeah.
That's right. Okay. Florida. All right, cool. Yeah, I remember seeing that post. Well, it's great to have you here. And
thanks.
It's cool. So I saw you, just to set how we came in contact, I would say, like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I saw you post in our Facebook group that you were really stoked about just completely selflessly helping anybody that needed advice, and you totally backed that up and just broke that down and said, all right, I'm ready to do it. I'm a developer. I'm gonna do my best to help you. What was the response? What happened once you once you said that in the group?
Well, but actually, before I answer that, what caused me to say that is I had watched a little video that you'd done, and you said, if people would just follow this one piece of advice, I think that they would see a vast improvement in their lives. And you mentioned that, just give to somebody if you're stuck or whatever, you don't have something to do right now, just volunteer to help somebody. So I said, you know what? He's right. I'm the guy that's always lurking. I'm never posting. I'm never sharing my knowledge. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to help. So yeah, when I posted in the forum, I like within minutes, had multiple Facebook messengers, hey, I got questions. And, it wasn't as overwhelming as I thought it was going to be. Some people asked more than others. Like I helped one guy, upload some apps to the store because he had lost his computer, and it was, it wasn't any big deal for me to do that. I even ended up making some code changes for him on one of his templates. But yeah, I think the overwhelming response was that people did reach out to me. I made some contacts, and it just made me feel better that I was actually helping and sharing some knowledge.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, that was cool. And we were just talking earlier, but I can definitely tell you that there's been a number of people that have said how much it's helped them, and how it inspired them to see you post that. So super cool, and it was definitely really inspiring to see you doing that. You have been a developer for a while now. What have you been in the app developer space? Have you been other developer? How did you get into the app stuff?
So I've been developing my whole professional career about 20 years now, and I've got into the app space around 2010, and that was just kind of on the side, hey, this looks cool, and I was making some simple little kid games, just the little fun games for kids to download. My first game actually was called Goo Goo Zoo, and it was it's just a bunch of little animals, and you poke them and they make a noise, and I tried to make it cute and funny, so they did silly little things, so that when a little kid plays it, they'll at least laugh, because there's a panda bear that it has a pacifier and it would fall out of its mouth and cry, and just little silly things like that. And that was my first foray into the App Store back in 2010, and I think that was a pretty big flop. I think I worked on that code for about 6 months, and I did the artwork myself and learned a lot about making art. But after about 6 months of effort, I think, grand total, I think that app over like the next 2 or 3 years, that app made about $600. So, that's like really, really bad wages.
That's a tough ROI to be.
Really, really negative ROI.
And so, what kind of programming were you doing leading up to the Goo Goo Zoo first app?
Yeah, that's it's all over the map. I've worked for a systems integrator, doing like government contract stuff for a long time. So I've done everything from full stack development to like programming hardware boards that, the bit level programming on actual devices. And then all the way up to working for a database company where I write in weird, obscure languages that no one's heard of.
Yeah, right on. I love it. I was talking to someone the other day about how when I first, actually before my first app project, that Alpha Combat project, I would work with a database programmer who was a similar story. He could kind of code anything you asked him to, and he was just kind of getting into the app business, but he wasn't really sure about some of the marketing and the design stuff, and I didn't really know anything about apps then either. And it was amazing to look back on that and to think about like what I was looking at with the App Store in 2010 as why it was exciting. Like I saw something that was, there was money to be made and there was all this potential that I was thinking about, and he was looking at it as this whole new playground to build new stuff in, and that there was all this new cool things that he could do. How did apps, or what did apps mean to you as a developer? Did it pull you one way or the other? Was it more creative? Was it more financially driven? What was exciting about it?
It was mostly the creative aspects, because I was doing my own art, I was writing the code, and then I was putting the game in hands of actual children and watching them play it and say, wow, this is awesome. Like they like it, they're having fun with it. And obviously, it would have been awesome if I'd made some money at it, and that was kind of a hope. But coming at it from a developer with no marketing skills, and it didn't work out that way. And I think that it took many, many years of failing until I finally landed on your website and started reading your stuff and then signing up, that I realized, this guy has a point. I can code somebody's socks off all day long, but that's not going to make me successful. That's, at the end of the day, that's not what is going to get me, a decent income at this or anything. So it was definitely more just a hobby and a passion.
Yeah, right on. Between 2010 and 2016, when you started getting into the marketing side of it, what was your app portfolio doing? Were you still producing games? Did you expand on that?
So I created the Goo Goo Zoo game, and then I followed that up with a dress-up game. It's called Baby Owl's Dress Up, and you have a little baby owlet, and you put clothes on it. And it's a little bit more advanced than the other game. I made it with Unity, so I was just kind of learning new stuff. The one that actually made me the most money over that time frame was a soundboard fart type noise app, and I made that because I'd spent all this time on this Goo Goo Zoo thing, and it didn't make much money. And then I looked at the charts one day, and I saw that some sound machine app was top of the charts, and I told my wife, I'm like, man, this sucks. Like, this is a fart app, and it's doing so much better. I put my heart into this thing, and so I said, screw it, I'm making a fart app tonight, and I'm going to see how it does. And I made a fart app that very night, and then I uploaded it, and it actually at one point in time was making a couple $100 a month. And that didn't last forever, and it was all ad revenue. I think I was using RevMob, and this was back in like 2012 or something. And I had actually discovered your blog back then because I know you were touting RevMob at one point, and I put it in there, and then sure enough, it was doing okay. That's not too bad considering I'd made that much in the lifetime of the other app. So. Yeah, that was the bigger success there, and I thought, oh, this is great. This is making money, and I thought I'm going to reskin this. So I reskinned it 6 ways to Sunday, but I wasn't doing any type of audience research or really knowing my audience, and so I just made up some stuff. Like I did a pirate themed one, and I did a gangsta themed one with gunshots or something. It was silly, and those just flopped. The original one did okay, but the others flopped. So, I kind of got my hand in reskinning a little bit there.
I think that is, in true reskinning format, and in a lot of ways, that's kind of the business model was don't waste your time on market research. Like, just get it in the store and put it in front of advertisers, and ride the volume, the app store volume as much as you can.
Yep.
And it is what it is. It's interesting to hear that because, obviously, fart apps probably not how we want to leave our legacy. Like, oh, that was a fart app guy.
Not at all.
That was a Gangnam app style, Gangnam style app guy.
Yeah.
But, I guess I'll ask you the question: how did you decide on the first 2 games? So the zoo game and then also the dress up game. How did you come up with those to begin with? Well,
so my kid was playing a bunch of little kid games at the time. There was the one that was kind of like it was always one of the top of like the mommy blogs, and when you're looking at games for kids, it was called Peekaboo Barn, and I think it's by Night and Day Studios, and those guys were like first day out on the App Store, right? This app was one of the first ones, and so. It was so simple. I mean, it's like this little barn, and you poke the door, and it opens up, and a little chicken will make a noise, and it says chicken or cow or whatever. And my kid loved it, so I was like, I can do this, and that's kind of where I started. It was a combination of, this is something I can give to my kid to play, and it's it's easy for me to do, and the artwork was very simple, and I'm no artist, so it was a good entry for me to learn how to do the artwork. That's kind of where I started. And then for the next one, it was kind of just more of the same. The baby owl and the dressing it up. I mean, it was similar style. Like I drew vectors in Illustrator, and then just kind of pieced it together in Unity, and it was just a little bit more advanced in that there was a dress-up component to it, and then interactive in that each little scene the owl was in, you could poke on, like there's a firefighter scene, and you can poke the fire truck and shoot water out of it, and it just was a little bit more of upping the game.
Yeah, what's interesting in a lot of ways, or for me at least, looking back, is that often there's so many people that I work, that email me, that I talk to, that have an idea, right? Like, who doesn't have an idea for the app business? And it's based on their own, subjective viewpoint of the world. And they say, oh, I'm working in the sales office, and everybody just needs this one thing. I got to build, I can transform the sales industry. And, it's not really an objective market research. It's more of I just know a lot of people. And in my world, this is everything. And then I think in 2000, 2011 to 2014, it became very apparent that actually, well, if you go and you look in the App Store, you can find truly winning ideas. And that's where the reskinning and the ASO really came through and got people a lot of success. And then I think now we're starting to see a third, more natural marketing evolution where it's okay. The App Store volume, yeah, that's great, and maybe once in a while you hit that, but that's not really a strategy. And the idea thing is okay. These ideas may be able to work, but let's find a way to validate this in the world markets, right? Like let's get out of the App Store and go look at what's popular out in the world. Like who actually cares about this? How big is your audience? And that's what gets me really excited. I've been waiting a long time for something like this to happen, and I'm always interested to hear people's stories like yours because it helps me put the pieces together about like, all right, well, what would I try to think back to what it was like in 2012 and what decisions I was making, so that now that I'm here in 2017, we can all make more informed decisions knowing what happened in the past and look at other markets similar to that. With so that after the Fart app, apps continue, and fast forward to how, like, let's say 2016. How did you go from beginning of 2016 to creating an emoji app?
Well, I had all but given up by the end of 2015. I mean, just, this isn't working. And then 2016, it was, I think, right after the new year. I don't know what happened or why. I don't remember the circumstances, but I ended up on your blog again. And I'd kind of been following your blog post over the years, and every now and then I'd read one. And I'd signed up for these entrepreneurial, info things before, and I'm like, this looks awesome, but I'm like, man, I just can't justify it because I've tried this stuff before, and I never follow through. And for whatever reason, you had a deal where you could sign up and get on your Facebook group, and some small monthly fee. And I said, I'm just going to try it, whatever. So I did it, and then it was like a fire hose of knowledge. I actually scrolled back to the beginning of when you started the Facebook group, and I just started reading everything I could. And I mean, I was like addicted to it, and it started getting me excited again. And so I just kind of lurked around and read and just kept reading stuff. And you had modules that you could do and stuff. And so I just followed along like that for the better part of last year. And then I don't know, somewhere around August, September, October, I thought, I'm going to try this again. I really need to just refocus. I mean, I've been focusing it from the wrong angle. I've been looking at it as a developer, thinking, I make something awesome, people are going to want it. But that's not necessarily true. I never vetted my ideas, and like you said, make sure that it's a winning idea, and I haven't done that. And so I ended up buying your course that gives you you sell some reskins with it. And I did it primarily because I wanted your emoji template, and that's because I had seen some people on on the Bluecloud group had been having success with emojis, and I thought, man, that's an easy barrier to entry. I think at the time you were talking about influencers and how they can help you sell, and I had what I thought was a decent idea for an influencer, and so I said, okay, I'm going to reach out to some influencers. I'm going to get this emoji template, and I'm totally going to start making emoji apps for big influencers. Of course, I reached out to some influencers, and it was crickets, like nothing. And of course, that discouraged me again. I'm like, that sucks. And then it was right around mid-October, you did a webinar on Facebook ads, and I signed up and watched it, and the whole thing just like lit off light bulbs because, in the thing you're talking about, right? Like you can control the traffic to the App Store with Facebook ads. You're not relying on their proprietary ranking algorithm anymore. And you showed how to use the Facebook audience tool to really just get in there and analyze your audience. And I mean, I just soaked it up like a sponge, and I mean, just started the wheels turning. And so that was October, and then it was like November went by, and then December I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to finally commit to it. So over the holiday break, or actually before that, I started researching, and I said, in your video you had showed how you did I think a golden retriever app, and I'm like, that's a good test subject. I'll just start with a dog too. Why not? I'll just copy off Carter. Why not? So I went and said, all right, I need to pick a dog, and my mother-in-law happens to love dachshunds, and I know that, like, when I say love, I mean like absolutely obsessed with them, and like everything in her house is like has a dachshund on it. It's like little statues, little posters, calendar. It's the whole house. It's like you can't get away from these things. And I'm like, I know that she is passionate about this stuff. Let me do some research on this audience. And so I just started digging into it, and it was a really big audience, and I thought, okay, this'll work. And the more I started digging in, the more I felt confident that this is a pretty passionate audience with a huge following. And so then I took some of your advice from your webinar, and I actually went through and I said, I need a list of emojis, right? Which ones am I going to actually have in my app? So I went through all the comments, like on these Facebook groups that the people belong to, and I read all of their posts, and I skimmed them and said, okay, which emojis are they using, right, every day when they do this stuff? And so that's how I selected like the top 10 or so that I was going to make sure were in my app. And the one that I ended up with that's like the most prominent on any of the forums was the one with the heart eyeballs. So that's my app icon, because I knew that one resonated with the audience. And
so good,
so that's kind of how I got into it. It was long-winded story, but followed you and then just was inspired to try it.
No, I think that is that's why I think reskinning was so great, or I should say old school reskinning back in 2013, is because it was like, do exactly what I'm doing. Like, don't try to make a new app. Just do this, change a little bit, and get it in the store. And I wish that that was more people did do that. Like, I think every dog breed in the world, or cat breed, or whatever people want to do, and so it's great. I also think it's great when you have something or somebody that you can immediately say, I know who this ideal person is, right? So I think, was it your aunt you said, or
mother-in-law?
Mother-in-law. You can picture her, and as soon as you picture that person, all of a sudden you're like, all right, I know who would freak out if I showed him this app, and that can really help drive a lot of the research, and I think that maybe it's just because I'm a nerd out marketer, but that's what gets me fired up, is when you can start to learn the ins and outs and see what makes people really passionate about specific topics. One question for you is, when you're doing that research, when you're learning all about dachshund owners in this case, how did you go about doing that research?
I primarily use the Facebook audience tool, the audience insights tool. That was like the key to this whole thing. Is I just went in there and started typing in, the keyword or the interests, and narrowing it down. And as I looked at the charts and the graphs, I saw, okay, well, it's 80% of this audience is women. Let's pick a subsection here and just start working on each subsection, and drilled down, and it just kept going until I got to a reasonable audience. But then the other part that it's a little bit trickier is I think you need some level of intuition about it, and I can't claim that I necessarily have that intuition, but my wife is a very intuitive person, and she's saying, okay, I see the audience you've selected here, but she's like, I really think that your younger audience that you're picking, the younger people aren't going to be your ideal customer here, because she's like, think about like people that own dogs, at least the ones that have multiple dogs are more likely older, because they're established. Maybe their kids have already left home. That's why they have extra dogs. They likely own a home. So she had some bits of insight that I hadn't really considered, and so I applied a few more filters to narrow it down even further. And I know, like on your webinar, you talked about you might want to start broad and then narrow it down. So I did that. I started with like all age ranges, and then after the second day, it became obvious that my wife was 100% dead on. It was like older women were the ones that were giving me the best installs, and so I just said, you know what, I'm just going to narrow it down. And when I did that, I mean, it shot through the roof.
It's amazing how also with that type of I guess intuition is a good word for it, or that kind of reality check type thinking where so I'll give an example on a site I have that's all about drones. In like 2015 I was doing, or late 2015 I was doing all sorts of crazy traffic stuff where you'd fire traffic over from Facebook, and then you'd run like 7 ad networks on a web page, and you'd optimize the ad networks, whatever, right? Like, not going to get into the details of it, but the idea is that you want to get the cheapest clicks you can off of Facebook, and then you monetize them on the web pages themselves and your targeting. And drones are a similar category for men, in the sense that there's a lot of young people interested in it, but there's also a lot of older guys who are interested in flying drones. And what I was finding is that there was a huge difference in I was getting much cheaper clicks from the older demographics, but I was getting many more email signups from the younger demographics, even though they were more expensive. And what that really taught me is you got to be clear about the whole funnel when you're doing these Facebook ads. So, because when you're doing that research, you may find the person who's going to click on your ad, but you might not necessarily get the person who's going to spend $1 or $2 on your Emoji app, which is just as important. And often when someone might think that they cracked the Facebook ad code, but they don't get the installs, it might be because, well, you got to go for the second cheapest option because they're actually going to buy the thing, and that makes all the numbers work.
Yes.
So you did the research in Facebook Audience Insights, which for anybody out there, it's a free tool. You can go and on Facebook ads and check it out, and it's really it's pretty amazing to see. Amazing / a little terrifying to see how much how well you can target people on Facebook through their advertising platform. And you had this app that for Dachshund emojis, I should say. How did the two of those combine? So when you launched it, what was your plan, or what was your strategy of putting it in the store?
My strategy was once it was in the store, then I knew I was going to start a Facebook ad campaign, and I didn't even worry about the keywords so much, like the ASO side of things. I put in as many Dachshund, Dachshund, Doxy, whatever, all the common keywords, wiener dog. I put all that stuff in there as an ASO, but it wasn't my focus because I knew I was going to try this ad approach because I was convinced from your webinar just that this is how if I can control the people coming to the store, then I can rise up the ranks. And of course, this is all theoretical. And I was telling a buddy about this, that when I got the push notification on my phone, your app is ready for sale on the App Store. My heart actually sank into my stomach, and I thought, oh crap, now I actually have to do this. And then what if I fail? Like, I was just like, cold sweat, man, I have to actually do this, and this is my chance to do it or fail. And so it was like the very next day, I think, that I started my ad, and I had no idea what to write in there for the creative, so I had put in something. I think it was like, show them how much you love your wiener, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's probably not the best approach, but I did it, and then it was like 2 installs that day, it cost me like $20. I'm like, oh man, that's not working. No, that's not working. And I thought, well, should I sit on it? I'm like, no, this has got to be like way too offensive for some people, especially if I'm targeting older women. They might just be turned off by this. So I changed up the text, and when I changed the wording on it, that I changed it first thing in the morning, the very next day, and I let it run, and I'm like, I'm not going to watch it, like the stock market, I'm not going to watch the ticker. I'm just going to check it tonight, and then see how many downloads I had, and then see where the breakdowns are. And that's what I did. I looked at it that night, and it had significantly improved upon the day before, and then it showed me the breakdowns, and that's when it confirmed, like, this is day 2, it had confirmed that, sure enough, that younger audience was not converting like I needed them to. So I just cut them off, and then on the third day, it just went crazy. I was seeing 25-cent CPIs, which is cost per install, and I thought, oh man, I can't have nailed it that quickly. There's no way. I mean, that this is just pure luck here. So that's when I started cautiously increasing my ad spend and saying, is this really going to hold? I mean, are they going to keep buying this thing, or is this just a weird fluke? And lucky for me, it held.
Yeah, I think it's, well, I mean, lucky for you, but also, you took a very good guess. You did your research, and it's a great value prop for someone who's super passionate about something like dachshunds. I mean, I know a couple of dachshund owners, and they freak out at the idea of a dachshund or an emoji, and you put those two together, and it's no secret that it's going to go totally gangbusters. And for anybody who's never bought Facebook ads or anything, when you say breakdown, there's a drop down in Facebook ads that will allow you to see the breakdown of things like male, female, age, location, device. I mean, it's like everything under the sun. And so as you're going in and looking through your Facebook, you're just kind of slicing the segments with as much as you can.
Yep.
What at that point, so how much a day was that? Was that like 10, 20, 40? How many dollars were you spending a day?
Well, the minimum I could start with was 40, because it was a newer Facebook account, and I think they limit you to 40 there. Right. So I was, and that was scary too, because I'm like, I really don't have $40 to spend. So I first day when I burned 20 and got 2 installs, man, I was starting to sweat. But the second day I spent the 40, and it was more like, I'm going to say it was more like 80 cents per install. So, that it was still, profitable. So that was good. But then on the third day is when I tweaked out the age. And then I was still at $40, and, I got the 25-cent CPIs. And then from there, I said, okay, well, let's be cautious about this. And I had read some other success stories in the Bluecloud group where people had, done the same thing. And, it's like, just, okay, well, once you figure out that it's actually holding steady, then you just step on the gas. And I actually just opened a brand new credit card specifically for this purpose. And I just said, here, Facebook, put all your, stuff on here. And because I knew I needed a runway, if it did succeed, I wanted a runway where I could put money. And so the third or fourth day, I upped it to like $60, and it held. And then I went to like, okay, what happens if I go to 100? And then I'm like, okay, what happens if I go to like 150? And then I just kept going from there, and just kept pushing the gas harder and harder.
I love it. I like the analogy you gave earlier too, between Facebook ads and the stock market. And I think that there's a lot of parallels that I find between the two of those, right? Specifically with finance, like more like the day trader types who are just, they got, the 16 screens up, just watching all the technicals. And also, when the handful of guys, the media buyers who are doing, really, really big volume, it's the same thing, but similarly along those same lines is this idea of when it is your own money and you see it going down, it is a very strong test of will to, stay true to your strategy and say, I'm going to hold here. I gotta see this thing through, even if it's for a couple of days. And 40, 80, $100, like that starts to add up pretty quick, especially when you're losing money. Like that's a very hard, very hard thing to do. So I guess along those lines, one thing I would ask you is, because that is a difficult hurdle to jump over. As someone, I've bought a lot of Facebook traffic in my life, but for somebody who has not bought a lot of Facebook traffic, and they do run that first campaign for $40 on their new account, what advice would you give them for like the first day, 2 days, 3 days, when they're feeling like, oh my God, I need to press pause and stop this immediately?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is, if you haven't done your market research and you haven't vetted this, then you might have reason to be nervous. But if you have done all that homework and you're pretty confident that this audience is there and that they're passionate about whatever it is you're providing, then you just have to, kind of stay strong. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, even with this thing being somewhat of a success, when my CPIs start creeping up towards $1, or I mean, they go up and down, right? And so as it's creeping up, I get nervous, and I've had to stop looking at my phone because I'm like, man, I want to keep checking it. And I'm like, oh no, it's climbing, and then, I want to shut it off, and it's like you got to avoid that. And I don't know if I have really good advice, but I would say that if you've done your homework and you're confident that this is a passionate audience, then you probably have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I think that's actually really, that's terrific advice. I think that I would, if I was going to add anything, it would be like, realize that you're learning something, right? You're basically paying $40 or $80, maybe even $120 to learn either what doesn't work, or to learn, you're going to get a pile of data that you can go through and whatever else. But I think it's like anything that's involves that trepidation in life, whether it be as preparing for a test in school all the way to going and competing in an athletic event. But if you're prepared, you walk in with a certain level of confidence. And often in business and in marketing in situations like this, that's what allows people to come out on top, is because they stay the course even when it's like everything inside of them is like, no, just stop it. Don't do it.
Right. Yeah. And one thing you said that was very important, that I didn't necessarily, this is partly the luck of this situation for me, but you had mentioned one of the key components when you're targeting an audience is that they have to be, or you want emotion to be a big part of it. And you had said that, and I heard it, and it didn't really super register until I got into the thick of this, and I realized that was exactly why these people were converting so well, is the emotion. I mean, there is, you see this advertisement for this wiener dog emoji, and you're translating that into like your love for your animal, and that's an emotion, and it taps something like deep inside people where, I mean, they want it. And that, reading the Facebook comments, I mean, it's incredible to read people, how much like they want it. And even when I had it out there, people were genuinely like upset when there wasn't an Android version. When's the Android version coming out? Like, I need this now. And you're like, man, wow, okay, people are really responding to this thing on a very deep emotional level. And I think that was the key to this thing succeeding, really. And if I had, let's say I'd just done a generic dog emoji and it wasn't very, identifiable, I think it wouldn't have succeeded. And similarly, I'm getting I put in the option in the app so that people can send an email and ask for additional emotions or dogs or whatever. And I've learned more about dachshunds in the last month than I ever knew. I mean, there's so many variations of the breed, and people are like, I need one that's got white spots on brown and this length hair, and you're like, and then they'll send me a picture of their dog, and I'm like, wow, okay, so yeah, people really want it just to look like their dog.
Yeah, I bet it is true. And I think this is one of those things in business and in marketing where it's awesome to be able to use emotion to sell something, because it's just a really fun product and it does bring some joy to people in their day-to-day. which is what marketing and really good products and pure business should be all about, is everyone wins, or there's a value delivered to everybody, versus often when, or at least in the marketing world, when people talk about using emotion to market or sell a product, there's definitely a little bit of a, is that shady, or what are you doing? Are you manipulating? Right. But in this case, I think that it's just tapping into, like you said, it's tapping into that connection and giving people this awesome experience, which it's great.
Right.
And getting those emails has got to be pretty fun on some level.
Yeah, it is, and I can tell people are sending me pictures of their wieners. I mean, that's awesome. You can't. It's awesome. But and the thing is, I didn't set out with this intent, right? Like that. I had heard you say that about emotion, but it wasn't like some mastermind scheme of evil. Like it just happened that I landed on that and tapped into that, and in hindsight, I can see it and say, oh yeah, that's obvious. So it is a good thing, because it's not like I'm manipulating people on purpose. I'm not some sort of evil marketing genius. I'm just some guy. And that's what's great, is like they feel good about it. They download it. There's people obviously that are disappointed, like, oh, I spent $1.99 on this and I only got 3 dogs. I should have had 7. I'd rather spend my $1.99 on a Starbucks. But for the most part, people are emailing like they're super happy, and I'm getting pretty decent reviews. So, it's a win-win.
That's awesome. With obviously with the developer background, I'm assuming you did much of the work yourself. So you took the template, got the designs done. Did you do those yourself?
Yeah. So what I did is, I went and found some stock image sites that sell vector stock, and Adobe Illustrator vectors, and I purchased the extended rights to those so that you can go bananas and sell it like crazy. And so I took 2 of those images, which were the kind of the foundation for what I wanted the dogs to look like. And my wife and I combed through and found the ones that were the cutest or whatever. And I just took those dogs and opened them up in Illustrator and just sat down and made 16, 17, 18 variations of each dog, and just powered through it. And when I was done, I had the artwork. Because I'm a developer, I like to script and automate things. So I've got some special scripts that I can run that will open up the Illustrator file and dump out all the layers as individual JPEGs or PNGs or whatever. And it's all very automated process that I've refined over the years, because I've done this for like the kids games and stuff. So I've got it all automated to do this stuff. And then as far as like the code goes, I did use as the basis of my code was the template that you sell. But I found I'm kind of a perfectionist with code, and I said, this isn't, and this is probably a bad thing in the grand scheme of things. Like if I'm actually wanting to focus on building a business and making money, I shouldn't be looking at like the names of the classes or like the variables and saying, oh, I don't like the name of that variable. But I went in and gave it like my whole workover, and I added in sticker or iMessage sticker app. I tweaked it. I downloaded some of the top performing emoji apps like Ellen DeGeneres' Emoji Exploji. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, when I use this template that I got from Carter, when I don't give the keyboard full access, what happens? So it shows me a typing keyboard. Well, what happens in Ellen's app if I don't get full access? And it pops up the keyboard. It says, hey, you're not quite there yet. You need to go and do these extra steps. And I'm like, oh, that's way better. That's like, a good onboarding experience. So I just started, looking at these top apps, and then I incorporated their little details like that into my app. It didn't take too long. We're talking like maybe a week of extra nights coding on it. And then I just took the quality to be on par with what the top apps were doing, because people are expecting this level of quality. Totally.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly, the difference between getting a 2-star app versus having a 4 or 5-star app, right? Is those small iterative details where you go in and you say, this could be better, and here's what the best in class is, and I want to make this the best it can be. When I think that's what allows things, on a revenue standpoint. I mean, that's why certain apps can buy Facebook ads for 5 days, and some can buy Facebook ads for 5 weeks, or 5 months or 5 years, because they continue to have that high quality of product, which also inevitably leads to a lot more sharing, a lot more people sending to their friends and things like that, especially in these communities of people that are so well connected and they love sending this and tagging their friends and being like, you got to download this, go check it out.
Yeah, and that's 90% of my the comments on my Facebook ad are really just a person will tag their friend and say, oh my gosh, this is so you. And that's no telling how much extra downloads you get that way,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so you have it, you got it updated, you got an iMessage, which means that there's a version that goes into the Apple sticker store. It's kind of like a store within the App Store type of thing, but it's more for the keyboard.
Right, but it's not sold separately. It's bundled into the same app.
Right, okay, yeah, got it. And then you've launched. And so when you launched this, which was, I guess, a couple of weeks ago,
January 4th.
Okay, so yeah, 3 or 4 weeks ago now. Have you done any updates, or do you have plans to do any updates on it?
Yes, I did. Let's see. Well, so the first update was kind of a necessity because the ads were so successful immediately that I quickly started rising up the charts. And of course, when you get that many downloads, you start getting things you're not prepared for. So, for example, there's this whole keyboard full access thing. So when you install a custom keyboard, Apple throws up this warning. It's super scary. It's like they're gonna steal your credit cards and your bank account. I mean, it's horrifying if you don't understand it. And I read a blog post about it. Some tech reviewer says, or tech writer says, hey, Apple is writing this as if the user actually understands the inner workings of how this stuff works, and they don't. So it just terrifies people. And since I'm targeting an older crowd, they really don't understand it. So it's almost immediately I had 1-star reviews out the wazoo, and people are like, this is a scam. They're stealing your credit card information. I mean, it was out of control. And I'm in a panic, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so I really had to sit down and look at it, and luckily I was getting people that were sending me Facebook messages to my business page and, saying, hey, why is this stealing my credit card information? And I finally pieced together what was happening. And so when you first launched the app, the very first thing that happened is it pops up a kind of a information screen. It tells you how to install the keyboard. And the problem with that is that it covered the entire screen. And I think your older audience, your less tech-savvy audience, they might not understand the whole pop-up concept and that poking the X makes it go away. And so they didn't quite realize that if you close that window, underneath of it is all the emojis, and you could touch them and share them. So they didn't know that. And then all they see is this instruction screen saying, go install this keyboard. And of course, there's a little blurb at the bottom that says, we don't record your information. But when they get to that scary Apple message, they just flip, and then I'm not doing this. So what I did is I released my first update, and I purposely made it so that the pop-up window didn't cover the entire screen. It's you can see around the edges, and you can see the dogs underneath of it. And I super emphasized the close button so that they would know they could close it. And then what I did is I changed up the intro screen, and it says, hey, there's 3 ways to use this app. Number 1 is right here in this app, just touch the dog. Number 2 is we've got the iMessage stickers. And then number 3 is you can, in all caps, optional, you can install a keyboard. And then if you swipe the screen, you get instructions for how to launch or install the iMessages app, because that's not intuitive to your older audience. And then the third set of instructions was how do you install the keyboard. And then I had a big paragraph talking about privacy, and we don't record it, and it's scary, but it's optional, so don't feel obligated to do this. And since that update, pretty much everyone's been happy. I'll get an occasional person that's upset about it, but for the most part, that took away that whole issue.
That's so good. And I completely agree, because that Apple message is like, it's like, this person is about to destroy your life. So
oh yeah, it's terrifying.
like what? How is this the default message?
So the Android version isn't much better. They actually say the same type of thing. Because I happened to release my Android version yesterday, and of course, you get some of the same complaints, but it's just as terrifying.
We did something similar where we included an onboarding video to the Golden Retriever Emoji app, where it was essentially a minute-long video that said, hey, we want to show you not only how to use this, but we want to make sure that we're not going to steal your phone and turn it into a surveillance video, or nothing's happening here.
Right.
And that definitely helped our reviews. But I think the other big thing that is really great to hear is that you're learning about this by talking to the customers. And I think that there's a big, what should I say? Oftentimes that when people want to learn about their users, or they want to learn about their app, they immediately want to install Google Analytics and Facebook Analytics, and they want to be able to learn everything about what these people are doing from data, right? Like the last thing they want is to have to actually talk to anybody and hear about what's really going on. But when you get people messaging you or emailing you or proactively telling you what's going on before they get to the point where they're so pissed off that they're leaving a bad review, you can often have these light bulb moments, similar to what you said about, wow, this is an older demographic. Maybe they just don't know how to close a pop-up, something that us as app people may already know, in depth, but that's something that you might not know if you haven't talked to them. So I think that sort of feedback loop really, really helps, and it's cool to hear you doing that.
Yeah, I absolutely decided I needed to do that before I launched. So I put, when you scroll down to the bottom of the page with all the emoji, it says send feedback, and there's a big a button you touch, and it pops up the email, and it has our email address pre-populated, and it's like, what's on your mind, and then you just type something in, and have special subjects so I can filter it on the other side when I get them. And then a lot of people actually though will just take it upon themselves. Like they go back to the Facebook ad where they saw it originally, and then click through to your Facebook page, because I don't give people the link to the Facebook page. Or at least I might on the App Store actually, but on like the iTunes view. But a lot of people end up on our Messenger giving us these same level of detail.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think a lot of people also this brings into this idea. It's kind of like a larger idea that's happening in the marketing world, or in any product world, is this idea of who is behind this product. Who is there really somebody there, or is this another one of those things? Because everybody at this point has had some bad experience online, whether it be they had their credit card at Yahoo and Yahoo was hacked, or they had their credit card at Target when Target was hacked, or something's happened. And I think the more we get into this world with more advertisements and everything, the more we can show customers like, hey, what's up? There's actually people here. Like, I'm a developer and I'm building this and I'm listening to you and I want to make this better. Like, I'm not stealing your stuff. I think with apps, with websites, with products, with whatever it is you're building, the more you can let people know that there is someone here. I'm not trying to screw you, and no matter what, like, it's going to be okay. Like, you're not losing something that's irreversible here. And I think that with emoji apps, that's a good example of opening that communication channel can pay off with dividends.
Well, and to that point, some of the people that have messaged or emailed me, they start off with a pretty foul tone, like, oh, why are you doing this? You're a scammer or whatever. And, being polite, helping them, getting them, through this, whatever they're having problems with, you kind of turn them into champions in a way, to use, some speak from sales world, but they're now kind of like on your side. And I can't tell you how many of these people at the end of the the conversation to like, thank you, this is so helpful, whatever. And then I'll slide in the, hey, if you're really happy, man, or can you go leave us a 5-star review? And they'll be like, absolutely. And I've actually helped boost my reviews that way.
Yeah, and that adds up too. I mean, that's very valuable over the long term with any app. Mm-hmm. So what would you say with Docs and the Docs Emoji app or any new app projects? Do you have a plan for like the next month or 2 months or 3 months, or is it more of a just keep doing what you're doing, improve the product, and keep hitting the gas while it's hot?
That's the first priority is improve and hit the gas. I ended up hiring an artist on Upwork and had had him create a dog for me because I had so many requests for the long-haired dachshund. So I've got that artwork, and I just need to push out a release, and people are asking for it. So it's I think I'm going to do that, and then just keep working the ads and seeing if I can tweak the ads, get better CPIs and stuff. But then beyond that, my wife and I are seeing that there is actual real potential here, for this to make some decent money. So we're looking at what can we do next. And I don't want to be like just totally focused on emoji. That was kind of my test. I wanted to test the Facebook marketing because from watching your webinar, I was fairly convinced that this is the way forward because I can control things better than relying on Apple's rank algorithm. And this test proved that absolutely that is completely possible. And now I'm like, I'd like to branch out into other things. I'd like to look at something. I hate to sound cliched, but something like let's look at the casino apps and how you monetize the users through in-app purchases and rewards and it's a similar concept in that you're tapping into people's emotions to get them to continue using it. So that's kind of an interesting challenge I'd like to go after. I don't know if I'll end up doing it or not, but it's something we're talking about.
Yeah, totally. I think that with an app like or both the app and with the Facebook ads campaigns, like seeing success, once you see it work once, you kind of have this moment of, okay, now I see all the categories in the App Store. What can I take? How can I transfer these skills and these fundamentals and apply them to new projects that have potentially bigger ROI potential than a paid app as it stands or things like that. I think you also start to realize is that you've kind of taken an existing community, whether of let's say docs and apps or basketball fans or whatever you're building the app on, emoji app on, and now you have a lot of people that are really stoked about a product, and they've all been pixeled on your Facebook pixel, and now you have a bunch of emails, and that can start to dovetail into all this other stuff now too, and it starts to open up a lot of new avenues, which is really exciting. But to your point, I think that if you have something that works and you got some runway to work with it, go for it.
Right. And I might revisit some of the influencer-based emojis as well, just because I still have a pretty good idea of a couple that could do fairly well, but I feel like, I'm some random guy in Florida emailing these influencers that they're like, who's this guy? I get too many emails to read this thing. But if I have a top performing app, then maybe I have a little bit more weight to reach people.
Yeah, I mean, you're the dachshund king of the App Store now.
Yep.
That's great, man. I love it. Cool, man. Well, this has been awesome. I guess the last thing I would ask you is specifically because you're in the Facebook group and you see a lot of the Facebook folks and you've helped out a lot of them, which has been awesome. What would you say are the most important, top two most important things for someone if they were going to make an emoji app that's going to make it successful? And also, what is one mistake that you see a lot of people making? And these could be the same, crossover, but what advice would you give someone who's interested in this?
So if you're going to go for an emoji app, I think that you definitely want to, like I mentioned before, you want the emotion, right? And that's you. So you want to pick something where you're fairly confident that you're going to reach someone on an emotional level. And I don't know, let's say I picked, the weed app. I'm going to do hemp or marijuana or whatever. I think that that's okay, but I don't know that you have enough emotion, and I could be wrong. That's what audience research is for, which is probably my second thing is, pick something with emotion and then do your audience research, because the Facebook audience insights tells you how likely is this group to click on ads, and that, to me, that's somewhat important, because if they don't click on ads, they're probably not going to click on your ad. So I would probably focus on just, make sure you research it and feel confident that it's going to do something. And then, the mistakes, I guess, I feel like people I see some emoji apps where people are hiring artists and they're just, maybe the artwork doesn't necessarily connect with the audience. So, for example, when I picked the artwork for this particular app, we combed through all the possibilities to find the ones that were the super cutest ones, and that really made you feel like, oh, that's cute. I would like to get that, and my wife's eye is way better at that stuff than I am, so I use her. But I've seen people post some screenshots before, and I'm like, yeah, that's okay, but it doesn't stand out to me as oh, I have to get that or whatever. So I would put some focus on the artwork. And I know that's hard. If you're hiring an artist to do your stuff, and you hired them, then they send you a picture, and you don't have too much control over what they create in the end. That's why the approach I took was interesting, because I went shopping essentially for the best artwork I could find, and then I just modified it. But you could theoretically, probably do one of those 99 designs or something, where people give you various approaches to the thing, so you can pick a really good one.
Totally. Yeah, I think that that's right on. I think that if you nail the audience through research, and you create a visual connection with them, the rest is pretty much just fill in the blanks, and you'll see some results come through. But the really important piece is finding those communities, especially people that are have a lot of emotion tied to that interest. And the good news is there's about 25,000 of those communities out there, so there's no shortage of finding people that are stoked about stuff.
Yeah.
So Paxton, how can people help you out? How can they get in touch with you? I'll obviously put links to your emoji app in the show notes, but how else can people get in touch and help you out?
So my website is haresquared.com, HARE squared.com. Go there. I think I have a contact form, maybe an email in there. But support at Hare Squared will definitely get to my inbox if you want to talk to me. Very
cool. I love it, man. Well, thanks so much, and congratulations on your success. It's super cool, and
thank you.
Really, thanks again for being such a great member of our community and helping so many people out. I know I really appreciate it, and I know that a lot of people do too.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was listening to these podcasts for the last year, and it's a little bit surreal to be actually on it. So that's kind of crazy. So thanks for having me on.
Right on, man.
This has been another episode of the Bluecloud Podcast. For more information on app development, ebooks, reliable source codes, and more, expand your mobile knowledge by going to bluecloudsolutions.com.